My name is Liz, and I'm with World Can't Wait. World Can't Wait unites with the outrage that many people have in Hawaii about the real harm and destruction RIMPAC does to Hawaii's air, land, and sea. We also unite with the outrage that Israel is one of the countries participating in RIMPAC. We also think it's very important that RIMPAC be understood more deeply and in its global context. RIMPAC is conducting so-called war games in order to better wage war on the world. RIMPAC is training to kill people in the service of US imperialism. It's training to hold on to its control over the entire Pacific region. And this year's exercise with 29 other countries is training for an inter-imperialist war with China, which is the US's principal rival over control of the Pacific, as well as US control over the international trade route in the South China Sea and a potential war with North Korea. Palestine and Hawaii have much in common. We clearly recognize that both have been colonized. Palestine by Israel and Hawaii by the US directly, and that each has a right to their own nation. However, what we talk about less is that Israel is the US's command post for US imperialism's control of the Middle East. And the US will do anything, including genocide and the risk of world war, to protect that control. Similarly, Hawaii is the US's control center for the US's control over the entire Pacific. RIMPAC is training to wage a full-scale war in order to hold on to that control. The genocide of the Palestinian people is an indication of how far the US will go to hold on to its position of top dog imperialist in the world. And we're very happy to have Ann Wright with us here tonight. Ann Wright has a ton of personal experience as a colonel in the US military and State Department diplomat, and since resigning in opposition to the Iraq War, has been a prominent participant in the international anti-war movement, including in the Pacific region. Ann has moderated international discussions with activists working in Okinawa, Australia, Jeju, Japan, Vietnam, and other areas of the Pacific. And we're so fortunate and happy to have her home to discuss RIMPAC in a global context. And first, Ann's going to give us a little update about the Break the Siege Freedom Flotilla that she recently participated. So let's give a big hand for Ann Wright.
Thank you very much, Liz, and thanks to all the World Can't Wait. We really appreciate all of what you all do to keep us moving and trying to challenge all of these policies that the United States has that are so detrimental to the United States, for sure, and to the world in general. So being here, coming back here just as RIMPAC starts, it was important to come back for that. I had not been here for about the last 5 months because I've been in Washington, D.C. primarily, daily going into the mean, evil U.S. Congress to try to get a ceasefire on Gaza. And how many of you all have been working on ceasefires, trying to get ceasefires in Gaza? Everybody raise your hand. I would think everybody in this room has been. And we thank you, from here from Hawaii, that as with in every state of the United States, there are so many people that are saying, what in the world is the Biden administration doing? I mean, being complicit in the horrific genocide that's going on in Gaza, with over 37,000 plus people that we know are dead because of the Israeli bombing with U.S. bombs. We know that there are tens of thousands of people that are still under the rubble. It's a horrific, horrific time for us. And the time that I spent in Washington at the Congress was that was horrible in its own way, because we have the majority of the U.S. Congress doesn't seem to care. They just don't care. And going to their offices every single day, I mean, that's what we have groups that will, every single day, will have at least 10 people, if not 50 or 60 people that arrive at the Congress, most of whom have never been in the U.S. Congress before. How many of you all have never set foot in either the House of Representatives or the U.S. Senate? Yeah, most people have not, and yet you can. All you have to do is go through a metal detector, and you can be there. You can go to offices, and we encourage you, if you happen to be in Washington, D.C. this summer or next fall, please join us every day at 10 o'clock. We have groups that are going to, generally 30 offices a day is what we try to hit on some aspect of what is going on. U.S. complicity, whether it's the latest, $11 billion that we're going to give Israel for this particular weapon system, or whether it's challenging the ceasefire that Biden pops up with finally after 9 months of saying absolutely nothing. So it's so important that we all continue to work hard to try to get our congressional delegation to be stronger in their confrontation with the Biden administration. I will say Senator Schatz has been one of the ones that has worked behind the scenes to try to get the administration to do more. But as he will say, it's been just terrible, just terrible. He and Chris Van Hollen from Maryland are some of the ones that have really been pushing, but it hasn't moved them fast enough to prevent the genocide that's going on. The Gaza flotilla that I'm a part of is a long-standing effort by the citizens of the world to challenge the illegal Israeli naval blockade of Gaza. There's of course an air blockade, a land blockade, but we've been trying to challenge the naval blockade, because for 40 years there have been no ships really that have been able to get into Gaza at all, because of the Israelis saying, we won't let you in. And we did have, in 2008, we had 5 little ships that were able to get in miraculously. But since 2008, none of the ships, the 35 ships that we have sailed, have been able to actually reach the shores of Gaza. But each one of those attempts is important, because it gets publicity for the fact that that naval blockade is still going on. And you probably remember in 2010 that with the Marmara and the 7 boats that were a part of that flotilla, where the Israeli military killed 10 people on board the Marmara, wounded 50. I was on that flotilla, not on the Marmara, but on a boat that was right next to it. And every boat was boarded by the Israelis, people beaten up on each one of them. And we've had people beaten up by the Israelis on every other boat that we've sailed. But that doesn't mean that we stop sailing. And in fact, right now we have a small boat that has left Norway and has gone through Europe, Rotterdam, now past London, into Cork, Ireland, 2 places in France, and now it's in Spain, and will be going through the Straits of Gibraltar into the Mediterranean, and it will be challenging the naval blockade later on this summer. We also have another project that I've been a part of, which is a much larger project with much, much bigger boats. And these are three boats, one of which could carry over 1,000 people. We probably won't have 1,000 on it, but we'll have several hundred that are on it. We have a second passenger ship that'll carry 150, and we have a cargo ship that will carry 5,500 tons of food, medicines, and things like that. That flotilla was stopped in May after we had over 200 people that had come to Istanbul to be a part of that flotilla, It was stopped because the country of Guinea-Bissau, with pressure from Israel and the United States, pulled the flags off those ships. And you can't just move big ships without flags. There are rules to the sea, apparently, that even our folks who are ready to challenge every rule in the book said we can't do that because well, the bottom line is the ships, we're in midst of reflagging those ships now, and we hope by probably the middle part of July we'll be able to say where we're going to be sailing from and the time we're going to be sailing, and then we'll be inviting back all the participants that were a part of phase 1 and then now they're a part of phase 2 to bring lots and lots of attention to the continuing horrific situation that's going on in Gaza. We do have several people from Hawaii that we hope will be on board those ships. So that's kind of the update from the flotilla side of it, but we have to every day keep track of what is going on in Gaza, to keep track of the continuing horrific genocide that's going on. So that's one part of what I wanted to talk about. Before I go into RIMPAC, I'd like to offer one note of encouragement. We now know that Julian Assange, the journalist who was 7 years in the Ecuadorian embassy, 5 years in Belmarsh prison, is now free in Australia. And I know many of you all have stood out in front of the federal building with Free Julian Assange, and over the many years, all of us have been working to try to get him released from whatever incarceration he was in. So at long last, Julian is free and seems to be in reasonably good physical health and hopefully psychological health too. So that's the encouraging part. So now on to what the title of the program was, Cancel RIMPAC. And Liz, I don't think I could give any more than what you gave in your introduction. I mean, you covered it pretty darn well. How many of you all have been here in Hawaii in other years? Every other year we have this Rim of the Pacific Naval War, not games, they aren't games, they are practices. The Naval War practice called Rim of the Pacific. How many of you all have lived through these before? Yeah. So it's every 2 years we have that. And on the alternate year, there's a major military exercise in Australia. It's called the Defender exercises. So the U.S. military is on steroids in practicing for war, whether it's on the sea, which we'll be seeing right here in Hawaii, or whether it's on the land, and the numerous exercises that go on during the year. They've just finished land exercises again in the Philippines. We have air assaults in South Korea, where huge numbers of U.S. military aircraft are flying right along the demilitarized zone with North Korea. We have the alliances that the United States has, the defense alliances, the mutual defense treaty alliances, which are now going on steroids too. For the first time, we do have a trilateral defense treaty now between Japan, South Korea, and the United States. And that's the first time that has happened, mainly because of the animosity between Japan and South Korea from World War II and the Korean War. So, but now there is that alliance. Of course, there is the Australian, UK, US alliance, AUKUS, which was formed about 3 years ago so that the United States could sell nuclear submarines to Australia and bring Australia into this defensive, offensive, whichever way you want to call it, I'd say offensive program that the U.S. has for the Western Pacific. The Western Pacific is a dangerous place, a really dangerous place. The numbers of U.S. naval vessels that we have, always one U.S. aircraft carrier group, and a carrier group. Do we have people that have been in the Navy here? Anybody in the Navy?
I was in the Marine Corps.
You're in the Marine Corps? Well, I'm sorry. No. So were you ever on one of the naval ships though, on your deployments?
Yeah, I participated in RIMPAC 6 years ago.
Oh, so here's a RIMPAC guy, so we can talk to him about all the details of what it is. But, you know, for every one of these aircraft carriers, there's like 15 ships, associated ships that come along with an aircraft carrier that are kind of the defense for the aircraft carrier, destroys, frigates, all this stuff. So the Western Pacific always has at least one aircraft carrier group that's there. And then the U.S. has been inviting other nations to join in, nations that one would not anticipate would necessarily be here in the Pacific, but they should stay at home in the Atlantic where they live. But no, for the rim of the Pacific, the U.S. has invited NATO countries, North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries, to send ships and aircraft and personnel to join in here in the Pacific for these naval war practices. And this year we'll have, from NATO, we'll have Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, the UK, and then, as you mentioned, Liz, also Israel. Israel is not in NATO, but it has a special status with NATO. And NATO uses Israel to test weapons that NATO countries need to have tested, and guess who they test them on? Palestinians. And Gaza has been one of the testing sites of NATO and the U.S. for the weaponry that the U.S. develops. And Israel also is one of the developers of a lot of different technology. The assassin drones that, you know, we finally, here in Hawaii, we received assassin drones, and out at Kaneohe Marine Base, we've had 6 assassin drones there for now about 5 or 6 years at least. I think, Wally, you've been out to protest them there, and Liz has, and some of those assassin drones have now been moved on to Guam. It's a field that you know, has really tragically just increased dramatically, and it's mainly because the Israelis have shown what you can do with these things, and the assassinations that are being taking place, targeted assassinations by car, by motorcycle, by the Israelis on Palestinians are just unbelievable. I mean, the Israelis have everyone's telephone number, everybody's cell phone number in Palestine, because the Palestinians don't have their own telephone network. They have to use the Israeli network. So anytime there's a new cell phone number, the Israelis give it. So they know where that cell phone is. They target the cell phone, whether the cell phone's in a car, on a motorcycle, and that's why you have a lot of people being killed one by one by one by one. And the United States does that too. We've done that in Afghanistan, we've done it in Pakistan, we've done it in Yemen, we've done it in Iraq. The technology of drones is pretty scary. And in fact, now for the defense of Taiwan, and let's see, do we have our gentlemen that are here from the Taiwan News Agency? They were here a little bit earlier. But the United States now is coming forth with a new strategy for the protection of Taiwan, and that is called Hell's Gate. Hell's Gate. And it was thought up by, right here in Hawaii, the Pacific Command, and Admiral Paparo, who's the 4-star admiral, head of the Indo-Pacific Command, a month and a half ago announced that to protect Taiwan from possible invasion from mainland China, that the United States would be sending over 1,000 drones to Taiwan. And the Hell's Gate, it's called Unmanned Hell's Gate. It will be all of these drones that will be sent out, both aerial drones and surface drones, vessels that have no people on them, And in fact, in the last RIMPAC, there were 3 large vessels that were brought from the west coast of the United States with no people on board. They were drone ships that came. But the United States now is having a program where we will be providing over 1,000 drones that will go to Taiwan. And if at the point that the United States feels that something's going to happen, then these drones will have a massive attack on mainland China, supposedly to give enough time for the United States to mount a defense of Taiwan. Well, when you start sending 1,000 of this, 1,000 of that, you know, the mistakes that can be made as in the military as in civilian life, there are lots of accidents that happen. There are a lot of mistakes that happen. And the more vessels you have out, the more drones you have, the more weaponry you have, then the probability that there is going to be some sort of a mistake that can lead to catastrophic results is there. RIMPAC.
Hell's Gate or Hell's Gate?
Hell's Gate. Well, it's skate. You could either say Hell's Gate or Hellscape. It all has the same letters in it. So whichever way you want it. It's ominous, isn't it? Ominous. Well, so what are we doing to challenge this? So we have, starting tomorrow is the beginning of RIMPAC. That's when the 29 countries are sending in 40 surface ships, 3 submarines, 14 national land forces, 150 aircraft, 25,000 personnel coming right here. So what are we doing about it? Well, last Thursday, I think it was an excellent press conference that was held out at the Pacific Fleet headquarters at the COA, the monument the altar that's been built right in front of the big, what do you call that thing? The name plate of the Pacific Fleet headquarters. An excellent press conference of over 20 organizations here in Hawaii that are challenging RIMPAC. This morning in San Diego was another press conference with organizations in California, and in fact we have some folks from Hawaii that are going over to San Diego to be a part of the symposium that they're going to have there. So we have that going on. Then tomorrow afternoon at from 4 to 6 at the Pacific Fleet headquarters, and that's on the corner of Halava Drive and Cam Highway. And it's just before you actually get to the Pearl Harbor turn-in, the Visitor Center. We'll be having sign waving. So that's, kind of the traditional way that we do things here in Hawaii, is to get out with some signs and use our physical presence there. So I hope some of you all can come. How many of you could come tomorrow? Yeah, well, let's get more hands up. Come on, let's go. Yeah, it's really important, because it's we will be seeing a lot of the military folks that work at Hickam Air Base and Pearl Harbor, to let them know that we're watching what they're doing, and we're watching the ships, because right across the street from where we'll be is where the aircraft carrier Carl Vinson is docked right now. I mean, talk about wait till you see this big aircraft carrier in person. How many of you all have ever seen an aircraft carrier? A couple of you? Yeah. Well, it's humongous. 5,000 people on board one ship, 40 aircraft, 60 aircraft, a lot of aircraft on it. So we definitely need to be out there, and as often as we can be out there. So tomorrow, for sure, we're going to be there from 4 to 6. And any of the organizations, call in the next 2 weeks, call any time for people to come back out there and be a part of sign waving. The buildup of the U.S. military throughout the Pacific, this is one part of it, the RIMPAC military exercises. But if you look at what the United States is doing in terms of amount of money that they are spending in other areas of the Pacific, you know, here in Hawaii, we have, what is it, like $5 billion that's going into Pearl Harbor now to redo the docks and the maintenance facilities that we have here, which is the biggest infusion of money into Pearl Harbor, I think, that's happened in decades. But it's not only here. On Guam, in the next 5 years, the United States will be spending $11 billion in 71 military construction projects. If you think things on our military stuff is on steroids here, the island of Guam is really getting blasted by the U.S. military and all of the huge projects they're doing. Even the tiny little countries of Palau, the Federated States of Micronesia, there are 3 military construction projects in the FSM, $432 million. I mean, these are huge amounts of money going into tiny, tiny little countries. The Northern Marianas will have $388 million in 7 military construction projects. And these are for alternative runways that should something happen to the runways on Guam, then the Northern Marianas will be the place where we will land. In the Philippines, the United States now has the authority, and that's probably not the right word, they've been given permission to use 9 military bases in the Philippines. And thank goodness we've got a lot of great activists in the Philippines that are challenging this huge, huge influx of U.S. military into the Philippines. And also, they're challenging the 39 million gallons of fuel that were sent from Red Hill, where we finally, how many of you all been active and shut down Red Hill? Yeah, good. Okay. Well, we finally got the fuel out of those things, out of those tanks, but it had to go somewhere. And unfortunately for the Philippines, 39 million gallons of it, without any notice at all to the community, was sent to the Philippines. So that's one of the things that people in the Philippines are outraged with their own government about this fuel. So the United States is having, the U.S. and the RIMPAC countries are having the big military exercises here, but it's not the only place that these military naval exercises are going on. Right now, Russia is having in the Pacific, up in the north of Japan, they are having their own set of military exercises. And of course, one of the latest treaties, mutual defense treaties, is now between Russia and North Korea. So the dangers that we are seeing in the Pacific of all of the countries starting lining up one side or another, rather than how about a little diplomacy? How about a little dialogue? Trying to ratchet down the temperature of all of the things that are going on here. But we just don't see it. We don't see it at all with the Biden administration. I mean, the one good thing I'll say about the Trump administration was that at least Trump did meet with Kim Jong-un. And until, Christine, what was the name of the guy that blew up the deal with North Korea? John Bolton. Until John Bolton got involved in it, we almost came close to having some sort of an agreement with North Korea. But it didn't happen, and under the Biden administration, you know, it's just been on steroids that the confrontation with North Korea. So all of these things are just, you know, they're so disheartening and so dangerous and so unnecessary. You would think in this day and time that dialogue, talking to people, would be more valuable than killing them. But let's see, how do you make money? How do you make money in today's world? Well, it's with weapons, and that seems to be what's ruling the day of what we're dealing with. Rather than sanity, it's the insanity of the weapons industry and how much it controls really what happens to our country. Well, these are the things that I'm most concerned about. The RIMPAC, I'm trying to make sure that we let our own government know that we're very disturbed about that, which we will be doing. And then the buildup in the Western Pacific, the fact that the administration still continues to push on allowing the genocide of Gaza to continue. So these are things that I think we all are deeply concerned about. And to the extent that you can work with organizations here in Hawaii to make your voices be known is really what it's all about. And things like petitions that go to the congressional delegation. I mean, you think, oh Jesus, if I have to sign one more of these things. But you know, they do influence. When it's known, when it's put out on social media that, you know, there have been 5,000 people, 10,000 people sign this, that, or the other thing. At least it gives courage to those that the petition is about. And right now, for the people in Gaza, the people in the West Bank, we certainly want to give them every bit of encouragement that we can, that we are working to try to keep our government from doing even more dangerous things than it's already done. So one other thing, there's one organization that I'm a part of, Code Pink Women for Peace. I don't know if you all follow what Code Pink is. Yeah, well, Code Pink is the one that organizes a lot of the congressional lobbying, and every day, as I mentioned before, at 10 in the morning, we gather at either the Rayburn House of Representatives cafeteria and orient everyone who shows up, and then off we go to find the Congress people. And you've probably seen some of the videos of particularly Medea Benjamin and a couple of others who are very fleet-footed. I'm not so fleet-footed, so I'm usually one of the spotters. I stand down the hallway, and when a congressperson comes, it's like, there. You know. And then the fleet-footed ones go after them and talk to them about why they have not called for a ceasefire, why they are, you know, whatever it is. And it's pretty unbelievable what these congresspeople will say and then we try to use that to get back to their constituents and, you know, their home areas to say, is this a person that, with this sort of view, that you really want in your, you know, as your representative? So Code Pink is a great organization, and then we can hold this for 1 second.
Of course.
Okay. And
Can I ask what are some of the shocking things that stand out that you've heard?
oh, geez, I mean, it's like everybody in Gaza is a terrorist. Every one of you all who is asking me these questions about why I don't call for a ceasefire, that means you are a Hamas lover, you're a terrorist. It's just
we're all
this.
working for China.
Yeah. So.
Or Qatar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty disheartening.